for years, when you went to the editorial page of the World Herald, you would go and you'd find cartoons, very talented cartoons from whatever's going on in the news that day. People that would make the news, you would find that Jeff Koterba would be on the big display on the editorial page, and one of the highlights, really, of the World Herald. But he hasn't been there in a while, although he's still drawing cartoons. And I just want to find out a little bit more about what this guy's been up to. And actually, full disclosure here, Jeff Koterba is one of my best friends and one of the most talented people that I know. And I am very happy to welcome him here to the Becca's Talking podcast. And thanks for being here, Jeff. This is very cool. So,
thanks, Tom.
So I guess the first question is, okay, how long has it been since you've been away from the World Herald?
You know, it's sort of like how we think of the pandemic. Wait, did that really happen? When was that? Did I even work at the World Herald? But I did over 30 years. It's coming up on the four-year anniversary since they eliminated my job.
They showed you the door. But at the time, while you were still working there, I remember talking with you, and you were bragging about the fact that you were like one of only a handful of editorial cartoonists still working for a daily newspaper.
Yeah, I might have been bragging. I might have also been keeping my fingers crossed because, you know, the writing was on the wall. The trend has been for newspapers all along for a long time. Newspapers have felt that an editorial cartoonist is sort of an extra feature, the frosting on the cake, so to speak. When you look at readership surveys, however, and what readers say on the ground, it, as you were alluding to earlier, an editorial cartoon tends to be one of the most popular things in the newspaper. So it's perplexing that it hasn't been more valued over the years, and certainly in recent years with cutbacks at newspapers across the country. I think, by my rough estimation, I know a lot of the other cartoonists, but some were already working freelance or on contract and no longer full-time. I am fairly certain I was within maybe the last 20-ish, maybe fewer than that, full-time employed newspaper cartoonists in America. And I kept having this fantasy that I would be the last cartoonist standing, and it was not to be. But pretty sure I was in the last 15, 20, maybe 25 left in America.
Well, but you're still standing. Only you're standing in a different field. Yeah,
sitting right now.
Yeah,
but yes.
But you're still writing. You're still doing the cartoons.
Still drawing the cartoons. I launched on Patreon almost immediately after they let me go. And for those who don't know, Patreon is a subscription-based service where you can subscribe to your favorite author, podcaster, artist, and support them in the same way that you would a la carte support someone else doing something. And then that allows me, with that support, to syndicate my cartoons nationally. So I do like to joke that I'm in about 800 newspapers around the world, just not in the World Herald. But the support on Patreon has been incredible. It truly is the only thing allowing me to keep going. There's not a lot of money in syndication. And I'm proud of the work I've done there. I have, since starting Patreon almost 4 years ago, I have literally never taken time off. Even if I travel, if I'm out of town, I'm now drawing on an iPad. So I've kept up that.
How many cartoons are you doing a week?
Three cartoons a week, plus extra content, posting sketches, time-lapse creativity videos showing my process, and all kinds of other extra goodies.
So if somebody wanted to support you and join Patreon and help you out, how do they go about doing that?
Patreon.
Patreon.com, right?
.com/Jeffrey Koterba.
Jeffrey Koterba. Find you, and then what does it cost?
Yeah, and you can find me through my website too, jeffreykoterba.com. The low buy-in is $6 a month, and then there are other tiers for extra goodies. I think I kind of jokingly have I've been thinking about having some crazy high tier that for a lot of money I'll come to dinner with you or something like that. I need to figure that out. But $6, $8, those levels.
But what you're doing here with Patreon, excuse me, it's very similar to how they used to support the arts back in the day, right? I mean,
hence the name. It comes from patronage. I mean, you go back to the Medicis in Florence, Italy, and throughout the ages, artists, musicians. I also live in the world of classical music, and a lot of the famous composers that we think of were supported by the king or by the pope or whomever.
Yeah.
So it's just a different, and certainly in our modern age, we have patrons of the arts through philanthropy and private donation. So it's a very similar model.
Okay, so
But at a very low buy-in, it's inexpensive for anybody to
you
help
get
support.
enough $6 memberships, and
Yeah.
you can make a living. Yeah. Now let's talk.
And thank you for being.
I'm a proud supporter of your work, although I'm on the low level because I'm broke. So where do the ideas come from? I mean, I know that, and we'll also talk about you're doing some stuff to foster creativity in people.
Sure.
But where do the ideas come from? I mean, I know you and I have had conversations over the years.
Yeah.
There'll be a big news story, and we'll just brainstorm a little bit to see where would we go with this? What do we do? How do we cover this? And that, where do you get your ideas? Where do they come from? And is it just like a panic that sets in when you got to do something? And yeah.
A lot of anxiety, a lot of panic. I mean, I've through the years, I've watched you and your career, and I've wondered, well, where did you get that idea? So it really is. It does start with people generally think, oh, it's all about the drawing and the cartoon and drawing funny pictures, but that's really only actually the frosting on the cake, to use that phrase again. It's not that it's an afterthought. I mean, if you have a really good drawing, that really helps. But if you think about like the New Yorker magazine and you see the kinds of cartoons in there, a lot of times they're not that well drawn, but the idea is really funny. So for me, it is essentially at its core, it's about the idea. And that idea has to be rooted, especially in the context of a political cartoon. Even though it's opinion, it has to be rooted in truth, capital T, as far as I can see the truth. So I absorb as much as I can. I'm reading the news from across the gamut, across the political spectrum, taking it in and listening to what people are saying on the street, overhearing conversations at coffee shops and whatnot, and just engaging with people at the grocery store or whatever. So I'm absorbing, and running that through the Koterba filter, whatever that is. And then the ideas can come from different places. So there are those days when it is panic and it's like desperation, and I've got to like figure something out and force an idea, and it will be grueling, hours of looking for an idea, and then finally something comes out. Other times it really is that spark, that lightning bolt. Often it is just a sense of what's in my gut. Like if I've been doing a lot of really heavy, serious topics lately, I just feel like, and I've always felt this when I was at the World Herald, certainly, that readers can only do so much, and we can only handle so much negativity or serious stuff. And so sometimes you just want to lighten it up and do a light, upbeat cartoon. Or I love looking for those ideas that we can maybe all agree on for a change. But I also then will some days wake up and just be grumpy or upset about some serious thing and just feel like I really have to do a serious idea. And this is where the visual part comes in, and I'll wrap this up. But where sometimes I'll feel like I've been drawing something that was, maybe kind of heavy or visually, like physically or visually complicated, and I just feel like the next one needs to be a really simple drawing, very simple.
Is that for you or for the readers?
That's a great point, Tom. I never thought. Well, it's probably all for me.
Yeah.
But I like to think that if I have a regular readership, that somehow getting in the flow of that is good also. And to just to mention classical music quickly. Many composers have taken that approach. Beethoven, for example, would compose a symphony that everybody loved. Oh, it's Beethoven. And then the next time he'd come out with something really kind of radical for the time. And people were like, what is this? And then the next time he'd come back with something more familiar. And he would kind of hit that rhythm. And interestingly enough, the symphonies, the works that we remember most are the ones that were controversial for the time. But I digress. But it's that technique, kind of that a little bit of a, kind of finding a balance.
Do you ever do one just say, "Oh, this one's just for me. I don't think anybody else is going to enjoy this, but I think it's funny. I think it's important. I think it's whatever." And you ever do it and just say, "Okay, this I don't know if they're going to publish this, but I feel like I got to say it, so I'm going to say it and see what happens."
Well, when I was at the World Herald, I certainly did those kinds of topics, those ideas where I thought, well, there's probably not going to get this into the paper. Sometimes I did. They're all for me, though, ultimately, to be honest with you. And I don't say that in a selfish way. All of my cartoons are my children, and I mean that. They're all my babies. And they're all, if not for me selfishly, but I do the kinds of drawings that I wish other cartoonists did, with all due respect to my cartoonist friends. I like most of the cartoonists I know. I may not always agree with them, certainly, but I like them. They're as people. And I may not particularly enjoy the way the drawing is handled. Some are beautiful, but I always draw for myself, and I always come up with ideas that I think are funny. I want to be surprised when I read my own cartoon, when I see it finished. I want to have some moment of revelation to me. So it's kind of like in a weird, mysterious thing. The idea comes, and I'll laugh at it, and then I'm drawing it, and I kind of zone out, and then I look at it again, and I'm like, oh, where did this idea come from? And I'll laugh, maybe. Or, say that's trash, and I got to start over. That happens.
You say you do the cartoons you wish you want to see. Very much like the rock band Kiss. They said, we became the band that we wanted to go see. We wanted to see a band like us, and that's what they became. And so you're just saying, okay, these are the types of cartoons that I wanted to see, and so that's what you're doing. And you've had tremendous success with this. I mean, you're recognized around the world for your cartoons.
But I'm thinking about Kiss. I could wear a wig, and no one would recognize me, but I would look like I have one. Okay.
That wig thing has sailed, man. Yeah, although you could do what I did, go through chemo and the hair grows back a lot quicker.
Man. I love that haircut.
And I do too.
I was driving down the street the other day, and I saw you, and I was honking at you, and you didn't hear me, so I called you.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, nice haircut.
I did. Yeah.
Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
But yeah, so recognize. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So,
cool.
but I wouldn't want you to go through the chemo for it. It's not worth it.
Man.
Excuse me. You talked about doing political cartoons.
Yeah.
When you started, did you say?
By the way, I'm glad you're okay, Tom.
I'm glad I'm okay too.
Truly.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm okay too. When you started doing this,
I mean, you're okay physically, mentally. I don't.
At least I got hair. So.
That's it. I'm out.
That was a non sequitur insult. Yeah.
Sorry.
So you've been doing this for how many years? You've been a cartoonist?
Professionally?
Yeah, 40. Close to.
I used to have hair when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I started at the World Herald. Well, I started before that, freelancing for the Kansas City Star and other papers in my college. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I've been at it since 1980s.
Yeah. Okay. So been doing it for a while. The political climate has changed.
No.
So much over that time.
What?
Yeah. You get a lot of hate, don't you? I mean, you get a lot of people that don't like something you do, and they'll accuse you of being some leftist. They'll accuse you of being some right-wing nut job, right, and everything in between.
Yeah. When I was at the newspaper, that happened often, where I would legit, and you've had these experiences, I know, receive a phone call, voicemail, back to back, where one person says, you leftist, liberal, blah, 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 and the next one, you right-wing fascist, blah, 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 over the same cartoon.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, what? But it is, obviously with social media and all of that, and, when I would get a lot of snail mail back in the day, and now, well, nobody's doing that. And, my thought was, and we've talked about this as well, like you write an angry letter and maybe you'll have a second thought putting it in the mailbox. A lot of people didn't, and they continue to send it. But now it's just a quick comment on Facebook or social or an email, and it's disturbing and it's upsetting. And, my thing, as is your thing, is that I long for. I don't mind debate. You don't have to like or agree with every one of my cartoons. My mom may, and other than that, I don't know that anyone else does. I don't care if you don't agree with me. Just respect me, and I will respect you. And if we can have an intelligent, civil discussion over, we can agree to disagree, but can we, for God's sakes, go have a coffee or a beer?
Yeah, as long as it's based in fact. 'Cause I agree. I mean, you and I've had this with both the news stories, that how I address it, how you address it.
Right.
We're seeing the same news story, and that my ideas are one thing, yours are something else. But at the same time, we at least agree this was the news story.
Yeah.
It's what's so frustrating is when these people just come out and, tell lies or don't know the truth, and they just make stuff up just to attack. And that's...
And you try to engage and say, okay, so tell me, but there's no fact. There's no information there. It's like, okay, show me what that is. You're making this accusation, then what is that based in? Give me something.
Yeah.
But they don't, or often they don't. But there are those exceptions when someone will come back and they will do that and they will engage. And it's refreshing. Why do you even try to engage with them?
I mean, as opposed to just saying, okay, thank you very much, and move on? Why do you put yourself through that?
I don't so much anymore. I don't. I used to do that all the time. I used to feel a responsibility when I was at the newspaper as a representative, as an ambassador for the newspaper, which I was. I felt an obligation. So playing in bands, being out in the public eye, I was out all the time, and I'd have people come up to me during a gig wanting to talk about something that maybe even I didn't do, but there's something they were upset about in the newsroom. Right. And I felt an obligation to listen as an ambassador or representative of the newspaper. And I don't feel that now. My thing is, this is just my opinion. I don't know that I'm right. I think I am. Maybe I'm not. But that's fine. You can have your opinion. That's fine. And if you want to disagree, that's fine. But if you're going to be mean or nasty or not based in fact, then I won't engage with you anymore.
But here's part of the problem with the new technology and everything, because you've got, let's say, somebody writes you something on Twitter or X, formerly Twitter. By the way, I am so sick and tired of these broadcasters, and it's in print too. Whenever they write articles, this tweet was put on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know it was formerly known as Twitter at this point?
I know. And if you don't know X, then Twitter may not help you anyway.
Yeah.
And word count is so precious in print media, especially. Yeah. I mean, maybe not online, but it's like, okay, just save yourself the space. But
the point I want to make with this is that when I was doing talk radio in Kansas City, mm-hmm. the same number you would used to call in was the same number you used to text.
Oh.
And there were times I would get a text, and I would read the text on the air and go, and be like, Becca, blah, 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 blah. And I get a text back 2 minutes later saying, dude, lighten up, that was a joke.
Oh.
And then I read the same text and go, hey, Becca, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, yeah, that is kind of funny.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's part of the problem with this sort of communication. Yes.
We're so conditioned to assume that it's a criticism, and you can't hear tone in a text. You can't see their face. This is why I go, I'm out and about in the world, and I see people, and I think, well, who are the people anonymously or whatever online hiding behind their computer saying all these awful things? What did they look like in person, or what did they do? And maybe I'm sitting next to them at a coffee shop and exchanging a smile. So I don't know if it empowers people to do that, but it's like, well, if we could just have more in-person conversations, maybe, I don't know, probably wouldn't help.
Well, it would help, though. It would help, because once you get to know people, then you can say, okay, well, I disagree with you, but you're a nice guy.
Right.
And that sort of, but when it's all just that anonymous, Twitter, Facebook, whatever thing, you can get very defensive and automatically assume that if somebody's writing you, they want to start an argument.
Right. Our defenses are up.
Yeah.
We just,
Yeah.
And when someone says something nice, I won't mention any names, but I recently had someone whom I know who has he's pretty far to the left, and was criticizing me on something. I can't remember what it was about. And I said it was a cartoon about, hey, So NASA scientists are looking to start a time zone on the moon, a lunar time zone. And I had this couple, kind of a romantic scene. They're sitting on a hill looking at the moon. And the other one says something like, well, if only we could have a political free zone. And this guy says, no, we need politics. Politics is everywhere. And he's like, okay, but like, dude, can we just have a moment where we don't have to make everything political? And I said, how about sharing something good that happened to you today? And he said, I'd share it, but somebody's going to make it political. And I said, if they make your nice thing political, I will delete their comment and block them or whatever. And he did. And he had recently paid off a student loan.
Oh, okay.
And he was so happy about it. And it was like, this is why sometimes I do engage, because of those moments. It was touching that he shared that. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And no one said anything bad. And it was like, wow, this is great.
It does surprise me sometimes. I'm not on social media anywhere near what I used to be, for the reason, because I would post something which I would think it'd be rather non-controversial thing, and yet I would get all sorts of feedback from people. Somebody want to start a fight. Mm-hmm. They either want to blame Trump or blame Biden or blame Obama or whoever. Blame you. And it's just like, I don't see how that's better for society.
Right.
I do think open lines of communication, discussion, and that it's all good.
Yep.
But on the other hand, though, without social media, how do you promote your Patreon page? How do you promote your work?
That's the main reason I'm there, honestly, and to see what other people I care about are up to. But yeah, I don't know how I would do it. I don't think I could take out I guess I could take out an ad in the newspaper. But my followers, my friends and followers are global. I have no idea how I would get the word out.
Yeah, because you go and you speak to cartoon conventions in France and around the world, right?
Yep, I'm in. Every year I go to. I'm in an exhibition in France and have been. My work's been there as well. Other places in France and elsewhere around the world. So yeah,
But now you've also diversified. As much as you're doing with cartooning and everything, you're still doing that. And you also do cartoons for corporate work and those things, right?
Caricatures and things like that. I don't have a lot of time for those, so I get requests for those. And if I have I have a month of no freelance, I'll say, hey, I'm open for commissions. I have to limit it because I am bombarded with them, so that's kind of nice. But I do things for the Omaha Press Club, and I do, retirement things like that, or people's pets. I love doing it. It's just a matter of my bandwidth and time, but I do those from time to time, and other freelance. But
you're also doing work now with KVNO.
I am the host of the Wednesday edition of Morning Classics, and Otis 12's backup, his stunt double, as we like to say. So when he's away, I fill in for him as well. But I'm on every Wednesday, and then I do other things. I started a feature called Jeff Around Town, where this gets back to our earlier point about human communication, in-person communication, where I might run into a total stranger and end up striking up a wonderful conversation, and then I'll go on and talk about it for my Jeff Around Town feature.
Well, that's one of the things I love about the plan is for doing these podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just finding interesting people and talking with them.
I'm sorry. I should leave now.
Our budget is such we can't get everybody.
There's a budget? This is actually super nice. When I looked around, I was thinking about where's my money?
Yeah, no, this is. I'll tell you what.
This
studio is very nice. They've done it up right.
Really nice.
Done it up right. But I find people fascinating, and that's why I like talking to them, listening to them, and hearing their stories.
Yeah,
because everybody's got stories to tell.
Yes, we are our stories.
Yeah,
and you're right. We all have stories, and there are a lot of great stories. Indeed, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
and so you learn from that, and then you put that into either your radio show or also then of course your cartoons.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Where do you see this going? Okay, so it used to be, every newspaper had their own cartoonist, and they were all revered, and that was a high profile job.
Yeah,
it was a good gig.
Yeah.
Now no newspapers have their own guys, although, like you said, you're in syndicated. You're in syndicated papers all over the country.
Right.
But what's it going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years? And I'm not just talking about cartooning necessarily, just the whole state of the media.
Yeah, and what you lose when you don't have your own cartoonist is you lose local cartoons. So there's no market for that for me. It's national, international, which it's hugely popular and are significant and important. But you don't have that local thing, and I believe one of the reasons I love KVNO so much is that we are about local hosts who are shopping at your local grocery store and then on air, introducing this next work of music. Media-wise, Tom, I have no idea. Cartooning-wise, I have no idea. I would like to think that satire has always existed in some form or has for a very long time. I mean, art has always been an important thing. I mean, going back to cave paintings, it's a part of who we are to express ourselves. I don't know, and especially with the advent of AI, it's very concerning. A lot of us cartoonists talk about that in terms of, if AI is taking our style, and I've not done this myself. I've had a few cartoonists try this, where they've tried creating cartoons in their own style, not actually doing the drawing, but using AI to do it in their style. It's damn creepy and upsetting, and it's troubling. And there was a university professor a couple of years ago who felt that it was unfair that only editorial cartoonists got to create cartoons because not everyone can draw. And so this professor was professing that editorial cartooning should stop altogether and that we should all just be able to just be making memes. Okay, memes are fine, but it doesn't replace a cartoon. No. And there's something magical and beautiful with a hand-drawn, or I draw digitally, but it's still in my style and in my hand. And there's something you can typeset the words, you can, and paste it or drop it into a cartoon with a font, but I handwrite my lettering. And I do that because every letter has its own personality. Every word, the word "the," and this is overthinking it for some maybe, but the word "the" in this cartoon may not have the same impact as the word "the" that I've drawn in another cartoon. Everything is by my hand, from my heart, soul, and brain, for better and for worse. AI cannot do that.
What else would you be doing if you weren't doing this? What else? I know you're a musician also, so maybe do that. But what could you do a regular 9-to-5 job?
No. But this is more than a 9-to-5 job. I mean, I love radio, and I do a lot at KVNO. I love it, in part, Tom, because it's apolitical, and it is a thing that even if you're not a fan of classical music, I think you should be, but I love all music. Good music is good music, as Otis 12 and I like to talk about. But it is something we can agree on. If it's there's no judgment here. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what your belief system is. It's great music. And so I don't know. Now that I have the radio bug, classical music bug, I if I weren't drawing cartoons, I would just do that. But if I weren't doing that, I love speaking French. I would find a way to get paid. Maybe I would teach French. I would find a way to spend more time in a French-speaking country, not necessarily France.
How about New Orleans?
Maybe New Orleans. I got beat up there once at a cartooning convention.
Really?
By an anonymous guy right there on Bourbon Street. So maybe not New Orleans.
So not another cartoonist. It wasn't some other cartoonist yet.
Well, that happened. No. It was just some rando. But I honestly, and maybe this is I'm interested in people and in their stories. And I would love to find some way to celebrate others. And you mentioned the creativity thing. I truly believe that we are all creative in some way. Sometimes it's in that traditional way as an artist, writer. Other times it's non-traditional ways, but problem solving, whether you're a busy parent, you got to take this kid to soccer and that you got to get to your Zoom meeting or whatever, that takes problem solving. That's creativity. And I also say to anyone who is of a certain age who says, "Oh, I always wanted to learn how to play piano." Okay, let's figure it out. So that is my thing, is helping you become that creative person develop that creativity.
You know,
That's my love, my passion.
You know, I've done stand-up, I've done, radio, and I've written a book, right? And in all those situations, people have come up to me and said, "Oh, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian," or "I always wanted to write a book,"
Mm-hmm.
And they've all said that to me. And my response is, "Well, then why aren't you?"
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I always wanted to do it too, and I did it with varying degrees of success. And at the same time, it was a thing like I had to make sacrifices for this.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something you really want to do, you'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, if you want to write a novel and you're a busy parent and you're working hard, yeah, it's going to take some sacrifice. There was an author once who was a single parent, had 2 kids, had to get them to school, the whole thing. So she would go to put the kids to bed early, go to bed from like 8 to midnight, wake up at midnight and write for 4 hours, and then go back to sleep for a few hours, wake the kids up, take them to school. And she did that. You can't do that for your whole life.
Yeah.
But she did that for a while and wrote a novel. And sometimes, yeah, it's awful sometimes, the sacrifice, but okay. But what, you're going to go to your grave with this dream in your heart?
The other thing is, you put all that work into it, that sweat equity and all that,
yep.
and now you have to release it for the world to judge. And that takes some guts.
It takes courage, but I would say find joy in doing the thing and not so much don't be attached to the outcome. That's something I've had to learn over the years. It's finding the joy in the process. And there is joy to be had in it. Sometimes there's great frustration, and especially on those days when no ideas are coming. But it's like you can't judge yourself based on how the world views you, because you'll drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but once again, if you want to support Jeff and his cartooning, it's patreon.com Jeffrey Koterba.
Yep.
Koterba. What's one thing? I mean, you've been in the public eye here for a long time in this town. What's one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
Oh.
People think that they know you, just I've seen it,
Okay.
Where strangers come up and just they feel they know you and they start talking to you.
That's great.
What's one thing that might surprise them?
Yeah, I mean, some people know that I have Tourette syndrome, that I'm able to hold in at times. Sometimes I can't. I think they might be surprised that a lot of people, I think that I am hugely financially successful, and they see me doing all of these things, and they think that I'm rich. I am far from that. I'm also shy and an introvert, and there are those who are shocked. They say, well, you led Prairie Cats, a swing band, in front of 10,000 people at Jazz on the Green. You've played Windows in the World. I'm shy and I'm an introvert, and I'm afraid of a lot of things, and I force myself to do them to get over that.
I'm very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Koterba, my friend,
Hey, Tom.
really enjoyed talking with you about this, and thanks for being a part of the Beckett's Talking podcast. Until next time, take care, and bye, y'all.